Thanks for sticking with us. 3 sessions back to back is a bit of a stretch. You can see the room's thinning out a little bit, but we'll try not to put you to sleep. Feel free to jump in with any questions as we go. We can make this as short or as long as the time allows. There's slides to get through, so it's more about sharing our experiences than anything else. So I'm Doug Meadows, Head of Enterprise Architecture and Requirements at NATS. Who in the room knows who NATS are? Mostly familiar with National Air Traffic. I've only been with NATS about a little over a year. I was previously, my background is mostly in defence, aerospace, intelligence subsectors. So the previous 10 years working for NATO. So I'm going to just change the one letter in the employee title. I'd like to keep things simple, so having spent 10 years bringing tracks together in the sky, trying to make the sounds hit each other, I'm now trying to keep those tracks away from each other in the sky. So very much the same job, sitting things happen a little bit quicker in missile defence than in aerospace. Things happen a little bit slower in defence than in air traffic, but it's still a pretty slow sort of business. The programs are still 5 to 6 years long, as opposed to 10, 20 years in defence, but very slow by any of you that are perhaps in more IT oriented. This session is really just our learning, our experiences, what we've been doing over the last couple of years, and trying to put architecture at the heart of developing future capability. And the reason there's 2 of us up here is because Aaron has very much been on that journey with us for the last couple of years, so we thought it would be a good idea to both speak, and that will help with, hopefully help with not putting you to sleep to different voices as we go through. So I'll let Peter introduce himself.
Thanks, Dan. Yes, it's quite confusing to people, but yes, my name is Peter Swift. I work for Aaron. Aaron is a global engineering firm, and I work in our advanced engineering team. So we do a number of things. We provide a number of services both to our internal engineering team, but also directly to clients like NATS in this case, that help them manage their technology better than the things we use, architecture techniques and skills. I'm not strictly an enterprise architect, but I do promote the use of architecture and enterprise architecture. Our projects very much a project organisation, better manage what we do, make a link to the business. So we've been working with NATS for a number of years now in a number of areas, and more recently, 18 months, helping NATS to improve the way they deal with requirements.
So a bit of background on where we're coming from here. So as we've said, NATS, supported by Aaron, have been spending a lot of time over the last year introducing a new approach for managing the development of requirements. It's a bit broader than enterprise architecture, but we want to put enterprise architecture very much at the heart of that. So it's how do we go about writing, documenting the requirements to develop and implement new capabilities. And principally we're talking about the operational side of the business here, so how we actually deliver an air traffic management service to our customers, which is principally the airlines and the airports. We focus very much more on the transformational change programs than, if you like, the more incremental programs of work, little tweaks here and there, maintaining and improving current operational systems, about the big, sizable change programs. And there is a lot of change going on in the business. A lot of the backbone and the capability has been around for many, many years. One of the previous speakers spoke about that stuff hidden in every organisation. It's got the stuff hiding there that no one wants to touch and play with. Well, a lot of the money we're spending now is recognising that some of this stuff has been there 40 years, and the young guys that understand it have to be wheeled in on their walking frames to help fix the little problems. We're very rapidly heading to the point that that's not sustainable. We need to safety is very much the backbone of everything we do, and we need to maintain those levels of safety, ideally improve them, while at the same time air traffic is growing tremendously. And so we need to put more capacity into the system, allow the airlines to find more flights in and out of the country, but maintaining those levels of safety first and foremost. So there's a lot to be done, and the scale of change that we're talking about over the next sort of 5 years, the change portfolio is knocking on through £1 billion worth of change. That's not operating the business, that is just changing out capabilities. So it's a very complex, critical national infrastructure domain with quite an old culture, old school culture, former public sector, quite resistant to change. A lot of people have been around for a long time, but a real need to do things differently. So doing all this, introducing this change, introducing a new way of doing business, brings about lots and lots of challenges that we therefore learn from. And that's what it is.
That 800 million back would be location and properties and new people and retiring people and repurposing people as well as
yeah, it's quite a broad change. So it includes facilities management, train change programs. It includes IT, underlying IT stuff. But most of it, the biggest chunk, is on fundamentally ATM capability change. So an awful lot around the systems that support so operational systems, yeah. The radar screens with effects on them, everything that goes behind that. Fundamentally, that's very much. So it's not about paying the wages of all the air traffic controllers, which is they get paid quite highly, the air traffic controllers. So the new methodology approach that we've taken is founded on TOGAF. TOGAF's been mentioned a few times earlier in the day. TOGAF is not picking up the textbook and deploy it, so if you look at our approach, look at the methodology, the things that we talk about, we might be hard pushed to say, well, where is TOGAF in that? It is not, you don't see the architecture development method front and centre in all our training materials and things like that. But there are some key things that we take and tailor it heavily. We'll talk a bit later about the other things that we've been integrating in with other best practices. But fundamentally, we want to get away from writing thousands of word-based child statement requirements indoors and much more about describing business processes and capabilities and those things to work out much more visualization and things like that to underpin the requirements. This is just a quick video to see, give you a bit more context about what NATS is about. It's only a couple of minutes long. Hopefully the volume will be just about loud enough that you can hear.
Two things define us. Drive everything we do. The first is safety. Our duty of care. It's what we've always done. The other, a constant striving for improvement. To meet the challenges and opportunities we face. The world's airspace is changing. Greater flow, faster travel, unmanned technology. Our job isn't just to keep the skies safe, but to continue to keep them safe. In the face of this shifting sky, with its changing rules and ever-increasing intensity and complexity, it's busy in there. The flow of aircraft needs to be handled with ever greater precision and predictability. And we're developing technologies and systems to do exactly that. Rising to the challenge, delivering change in positive and ingenious ways, unlocking capacity through increased efficiency, leading the way, helping our customers improve their operational effectiveness and achieve ever higher levels of performance. It's the right combination of people and technology. We're evolving and innovating, but with one thing constant: safe in everything we do, always. Now, working together to support you.
So if you had to pick one word out of that, what was the one word you heard over and over again? Safe, safe, safe. And does that generally translate into doing things, changing things quickly? And being agile, as we hear a lot about? No. So agile is difficult, but there's still an awful lot of appetite for doing things quicker, for changing things faster, in a more agile fashion. So when we introduce a new approach, we've got to be cognizant of that, and there are places where we can do things more agile. We don't have to take 5 or 10 years over everything. So what is the vision? What is it that we're trying to change in all of this? Well, we're not unique in the fact that getting requirements wrong is ultimately one of the biggest causes of cost overruns and delays on any program or project. Nothing unique to NATS there. Ultimately, we spend an awful lot of time reworking requirements. We spend an awful lot of time clarifying them when the next person down the chain goes, well, what on earth do you mean by that? And all of that takes time, takes effort, and ultimately, quite frequently, you get to the end of the life cycle, at the end of the delivery life cycle, you roll something out and the operators go, that isn't what I wanted, and you start again. And what we're trying to get away from is trying to make that, improve that as much as we can. And there's graphs that support all of this that demonstrate the scale of this problem. I'm sure some of you will have seen them that show, if you get the requirement right the first time, take that as your nominal 1 times cost. If you're correcting them in design, then it's 2 or 3 times as expensive. If you're correcting them when you're on contract with industry and doing the detailed software development things, you're up to 5, 10 times as expensive. If you're not picking it up till test and integration, 60 times the price, and if it's in operate, well, you can start again with the process. So it's worth investing up front in getting requirements right, and the architecture can be a big part of that. The graph that really sold it when we were setting out on this journey was the one that showed, put a value on that for the big programs, and I think it came out of a NASA study, and they looked at about 200 projects and quantified how much time and effort did they spend on requirements versus how far over budget, over time did they go. And they showed that projects that spent less than 5% of their budget, on average, overran their initial budget by 185%. So approaching well over double the initial cost. Those projects that spent 5 to 10%, that came down to about 80% over the original cost. And those that spend 10, 15% or more, that came down to about 35%, which is still overspent. Everyone overspends. But the dramatic difference, and when we were selling the vision of, okay, we want to spend some time, more time and money on the requirements, and we wanted to employ a new team of central expertise in this area, and of course you have to justify the cost of that team. And we applied that graph to that 800 million portfolio and said the cost of this team, over 800 million, we're mitigating the risk of about 80 million overspend for this portfolio, which was quite appealing to the senior executive leadership. Of course, they translate that now to I'm the guy that they see in the corridor and go, how are you coming along with saving me that 80 million quid? But I have to remind them, saving is different to mitigating cost overruns. When you overspend 80 million quid, they come and tell me that I haven't done my job. It's entirely plausible, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. Now, this is Enterprise Architecture Conference. I'm talking a lot about requirements. we see the two as very, very much integrated and intertwined with each other. What do we see as the main benefits of putting architecture at the heart of this? One of the things is about improving consistency and coherency in the way we do things. So historically, everything has been in NACS has been done in projects, in individual project silos. An effort comes along, it builds its requirements, it delivers its kit, it goes away, the next program comes along, starts again. By having an architecture that ties all these different things together, you're much more likely to be able to reuse the learning from previous efforts, reuse the materials, reuse the requirements, and define the things that are changing. Now, that's great in principle. It takes a long time to build up that baseline architecture. No one ever wants to pay for building the baseline. They just want to write, what does the 2D look like? The users, the end user community, they want to know what does the future look like. But the people that have got to build that change, deliver that change, they're interested in the gap. And to identify the gap, you've got to understand what the as is. No one ever wants to pay for that. So building on that baseline is quite a challenge. I mean, a lot of pragmatism about how we do that and how we can build in the legacy. But the architecture gives us a vehicle by which we can have a more consistent approach. It gives us a vehicle by which we can have a more integrated and coherent understanding of what it is we're delivering. And ultimately, by having visualization, we should have more ease of understanding of what the requirements are. So showing, I think someone mentioned in one of the keynotes this morning, the importance to have the ease of digesting a picture versus a whole load of words. It makes it a lot easier. People worry about the understanding of the detail. Can you convey the detail in the image? Well, of course you can. You just go down into a different level of granularity. Pitching the level of granularity is a difficult thing to do. But all of that is where we're trying to get to with this. But we're not just changing our approach to architectural requirements. We thought we'd bite off something a bit bigger and meatier while we're at it. So we've got this thing called strategic portfolio management. And what strategic portfolio management does is bring together where we're trying to get to, the vision at the end, what is it we're trying to accomplish in the business, with a single change portfolio. So that is effectively the set of programs, the what we're going to do in order to get there. And then the how, the business change framework. Apologies for the terminology and weighing of it. But that is the how, that is the process of how we're going to get there. And that is more than just this systems engineering, architecture and requirements. That also introduces portfolio program project management to the organisation. As I mentioned previously, they historically very much used to working in projects, not very used to coordinating that, working top down from strategy, understanding what your full portfolio is, breaking that up into programs and then into projects. Everything is just project. Leads to a whole lot of governance at the top, approving every little change, and that in itself slows things down, makes things less coherent. Another thread through that business change framework is the change management, so a lot more conscious effort about how do we take everyone along the journey, how do we make sure that we're talking to the right people at the right times in the ways that they understand. So a lot more conscious management of how we do that. And again, best practice underpinning that. So we have best practice in the program project management space. We have best practice in the change management space, benefits management as well. All of those best practices come with their own terminology, a lot of which overlap with the legacy terminology as well. So a big part of this is trying to get everyone talking the same language to avoid people talking past each other and arguing about things when they actually agree with each other. And we're trying to do all of that in a very highly regulated, naturally, culturally risk-averse environment. So, as we mentioned, lots of challenges, lots of difficult problems to face, and consequently a lot of learning from having done it. So, Peter will now tell you a bit about what have we actually changed.
Thanks, Dan. Right. Well, I can tell you've been practicing this for the last 6 months. Okay, thanks everyone again. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more about what exactly did we do and how did we go about that journey. So I'll just get all the points on the screen. So what we do, so like Dan already said, what we try to do is take some of the main principles from architecture, enterprise architecture, and from some of the other international and industry standard frameworks to try to get a different mindset in that about requirements, to move away from the text-based requirements, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of statements indoors, to using models, so people and process models, various architecture views to explain how we wanted to work in the future, and then how that impacted the different parts of the business, the different roles, the different technologies, and how all that works together to create a new changed capability that NATS needs to be successful in the future. We've aligned that approach to the new service thinking in NATS. So NATS has already started a journey to reorient their business around services, thinking about the customer services that they provide to external customers, and also the more internal technical services that they need to create to create internal capabilities to deliver sort of operational services. So the whole service orientation, the capability driven approach, all that we try to weave into the new approach to requirements, all the way from the top, from the strategy into the portfolio, the programs, the project teams, down to sort of system engineering level. So one of the key things that we also tried to get into the approach was consistency, so a single consistent way of working, a consistent way of working that derived all the way from the original strategy. So a business-driven, strategy-driven approach from the top. We realized that to get that consistency, we needed to centralize some aspects. We worked to define a central team, a core team around dealing with requirements, central excellence requirements. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that would not become an isolated silo. So there were appropriate links into the rest of the business, into the engineering teams, the specialist functions like security, cybersecurity, or safety, etc., to bring those together, and seeing that centralized function more as a facilitating role, often to bring together those specialist views and bring those in where they are needed. We spoke a little bit about consistency. So consistency we consider quite important because that's invest a lot of money in technologies. There's a lot of project teams, program teams. They all do a lot of good stuff, but often do it in our own way. And we wanted to make that more compatible, more consistent, more better. So a consistent basis that we could work on, then improving gradually over the years. At the same time, we want to make sure that the processes and approaches were flexible, adaptable to the program at hand. So you can imagine if you've got a program that's trying to implement as a service solution, then the way you go about your architecture and requirements is quite different from where you're maybe developing something bespoke that is specifically tailored to how that wants to work. You don't want to spend months on defining detailed requirements for something that you're then just going to buy off the shelf that comes with features that are listed in the catalog, and vice versa. And finally, like I've already said, so making sure that whatever process was developed, it would bring in the relevant expertise from the wider business at the appropriate points in time. Just start with the top half. So in terms of approach, like I said, that's quite a long history of developing systems, developing traffic management solutions. They've got a well-established supply chain, or quite mature in what they do. But at the same time, there was still quite a lot of differences between how one team and another team would approach things. So what we tried to introduce was more industry standard frameworks. So TOGAF from a methodology, from a strategy through to business requirement, then to the information systems sort of approach, and the iterative sort of nature of going through that cycle, combined with NAF, the data architecture framework more from a modeling perspective. We realized that neither of those two frameworks were particularly strong at the strategy end, so Nancy introduced quite early on with an automation model to help them structure their approach to strategy. And then finally, from a tooling point of view, again, various tools were already used. We try to consolidate them and focus on standardize the tooling instead, and the repository that sits behind that. Again, create a single repository that keeps various engineering teams. And like Dan already said, all that was done within a wider context of NATS business adopting a new approach to dealing with projects, programs, change portfolio, adopting other industry standards like management portfolios and managing successful programs. So it's been quite a journey. So we've been working together now for about 18 months, I would say. And we started at the end of 2017 with an initial review. And that's had them to deal differently with requirements, to improve the way that the requirements sort of define projects and programs. They asked us to help them review the current ways of working, not only to understand what works well and where there were areas for improvement, but it also kickstarted the initial engagement with the wider business. I think that's quite an important point. So part of why I think at the moment the program is working quite well, the new function and the new approach is that quite early on there's been quite a broad engagement with all layers of the business. So we started at least 40 or 50 interviews with anyone from the system engineers, the design managers, the project managers, program managers, the directors, the executives, and the various specialists to understand their role around these projects, their role around requirements, and their views on what went well, what should definitely be maintained, and they roll that more broadly across the community, where there are areas of improvement. That exercise created a lot of buy-in from the wider business from the start. That led to a number of recommendations, and from those recommendations we started working on defining this new approach, this new way of how NATS wants us to work and how NATS wants us to deal with the requirements through the full life cycle from strategy to programs and projects, and eventually implementing and delivering new capabilities. We set up a training scheme, a communication scheme with a number of modules which were tailored to various stakeholder groups. So we had shorter, more focused sessions for the executives, explaining what we were doing and the impact that would have, to much longer sessions, often multiple sections for certain stakeholder groups, where they were taken through the various aspects of the methodology, being the full life cycle, the alignment to the business change framework, the tooling, the general cultural aspects of the requirements, business analysis type of aspects, etc. And that's been rolling out for the last 6 months or so, I think. And again, that's been communicated quite broadly to the rest of the engineering community in that. And finally, at the moment, having developed a methodology and communication plan, we're currently working with that to implement this new methodology with our first main program, trying to also use that first program to turn proposals and approaches into real life examples of that this is what we think it should look like, and this is how we want all programs to work in the future. So in terms of implementing these changes, I think we've already touched on it, to make sure that the change lands and is actually adopted by the people, by the community. It's important to take a holistic approach, to not just focus on doing architecture or doing modeling, but to really look at how people work, the processes they go through, and the culture aspect, and trying to create a cultural shift. So we worked around the process side of things. We defined a new way of working around requirements, aligned to the wider sort of business change framework that's being introduced. We've developed early guidance material, and that's still developing as we're going through the first steps on the initial program, and all the templates and definitions, etc. that go with that. As I've been working quite hard on recruitment, creating this new community of requirements analysts, enterprise architects, as part of the core team, Centre of Excellence, but also from a communication point of view, starting to create this wider community in that deal with requirements and share their experiences and work to further sort of develop this approach. And finally, we've been focusing on the cultural side of things by sketching this vision of the future, this vision of working in a new way, engaging with the community, as opposed to something being pragmatic in terms of what can be done now, but what will be done in the next phase.
So with regards to culture,
Yes.
what are you trying to change about the culture? The problem with culture is that it's really hard to change. And half the problem is that you can't say, or you can't easily say, I want this type of culture, and then magically go about getting that. There's something that needs to come from other places that all needs to come together to create a culture. What's wrong with the culture as it was yesterday? Where do you want to get the culture to, and how's that going?
So maybe it's also one for Dan to comment on, but it's like you say, it's a much slower change, and it's much more about inspiring people and showing them a vision of how you see that's working in the future and how that's going to help them and that's being more successful.
It's much more difficult to put a pin. It's very easy to say, right, we'll write that document, we'll deliver this training, we'll recruit these people. Culture is the thing that will break you, and often it's the thing that people go, well, I don't know what to do about that, so I'll do nothing. What we're trying to change was, so a lot of it is about comms, understanding the stakeholders, what they want from it. An awful lot of it is about avoiding the tendency to sit in your ivory tower, write the process and say, here you go, do this. So making sure that everyone understands why you're doing it and why it's beneficial to them, and that applies to the senior execs and it applies to the working level people that are actually going to be impacted by this. So when we deliver the training, we deliver that widespread, and of that overview module that we do, at least half of it is why are we doing this? What is the point? What are we doing this for? And we actually engage the audience in that. Say, before we tell you why we're doing this, you tell us what's wrong with the way that we do architecture and requirements today. What do you think we could do better? And they get them bought in to that. And it massively reduces the likelihood that when you come and try to roll out the program, the guys sit there subverting the process, trying to do it in the old way, because they understand why you're trying to do it, they're more bought in and more supportive. It still happens to some degree, and a big part of creating that central team is to make sure that you're pushing this out bit by bit, you're embedding this within the team, you become part of the team, rather than just saying, here you go, here's the process, execute it. And then we get the learning, we get the feedback from the problems, the challenges that we inevitably face when you're out there. And we've got a central team, a central body of expertise to share off each other, play ideas off each other, and feed it back in a more consistent way. Well, we faced that challenge over here. Now we've got a central team and go, oh yeah, well they learned that, let's do it this way, over here. And it's subtle, and there's lots of little things that make a difference about it. I think one of the other presentations I heard earlier spoke about, if you've got 300 projects running the best one in the world, you've not got that many enterprise architects, how do you spread them around? Yes, you can't have people full-time, but you can put people part-time on certain projects, and we encourage them to, fairly early on in this journey. But the idea is that when we stand up in program teams, we will have co-located, embedded with the team a couple of days a week, and embedded with your functional area, that centre of excellence, if you like, a couple of days a week, so that you build the relationships with the team rather than just sitting in the back office doing enterprise architecture stuff, but also you feedback the learning and share it. There's a lot of fairly intangible things. I spend a lot of my time going around doing one-on-ones. I feel like doing a constant journey going around to people that you've spoken to, just to make sure you're still okay with how this is going, you're still bought into the idea. And those things are difficult to prioritise in calendars. There's always a burning fire. But those conversations, those coffees, breaks, the chat through are invaluable in dealing with this intangible cultural side of things. And the other one, that bottom bullet on there, pragmatism, that if we're here today and we're trying to get the business to our grand vision of what it looks like, we're not trying to go from there to there on this first programme. I mean, ideally you would roll these things out on a little thing, work out the challenges and then roll it out more broadly. No, we're pretty much rolling it out across an £800 million portfolio in one file swoop. The first programme that we're doing at Hungary at the moment is itself a £200 million programme. The advantage of that is that you've got a real critical mass and people know the business is heavily invested in this. We might as well get on board and make it work because it's too big a thing to challenge. And it also means you flush out all those problems early. It means it's a big uphill journey, but there's a lot of learning very quickly. And if people have constructive attitudes and collaborative attitudes, then you can solve a lot of those problems. But you will not get from there to there. We're getting from there to here as a first step. One of the key things is that getting to here and being pragmatic about what we can reuse, what we can afford not to change right now. We don't lock ourselves into some compromise that we can't get out of later on. So every time we make a compromise and say, yeah, we can live with that for now, we need to have an idea of, yeah, but on the next stage, how do we get another step forward? Because there's a lot of fear about, okay, well, we live with that now, and we start for the next 10 years, and never get out. And the stakeholders appreciate not being, there's always that challenge of it was too curious, too visionary. It's not practical, it's not realistic, because most people are in the phase of, I'm trying to deliver my program, my project, and the quickest and easiest way to do that is to ignore half of your grand vision, which may be the best thing for the project, but it's not the best thing for the business overall. Some of the benefits of this, some of them are direct through individual effort. A lot of it doesn't come until you do it across the board, and that requires a lot of investment and support from the senior buying, and you need to stick with it to get the benefits. One of the common things with enterprise architecture, all the benefits, doing it en masse, you can't just nibble away little bits at the edges, you don't get the benefit. So that's difficult. So keeping buy-in is, and someone said this morning, one of the comments was, what's the worst thing that could happen in one of the things? So you get a beating from your boss, and I started thinking, well, no, the worst thing that could happen is that they disband the entire department and we're all out of a job. That's a real possibility. So making sure everyone continues to understand and see the benefits of this is really important. And we're trying to put in place benefits, tracking things that actually can put a number on that. That's really difficult. How do I demonstrate the savings? The big problem being that no one's measured anything to compare to.
So what kind of KPIs are you thinking about?
I'll be honest with you, if you've got any ideas, I'd love them, because there's easy, tangible things that, how much are we spending on requirements, and you can show that. There's the big picture, okay, how much have we overspent, what did we forecast this to be at the start, what did it cost at the end? There's also then what's the rework on requirements, how many requirements are going around the cycle and being reworked, and delays, all those sorts of things. So it's not perfect yet. Our biggest problem is the lack of baseline data to compare to. Can we get anyone to crawl through the old stuff and try and analyze numbers to compare? It's not easy.
Okay. We've done that. So one of the elements of the proposal is the creation of this centre of excellence. This requirements management team that not only deals with high-level requirements and then the programs initially, so it's two functions we see at the moment. One is owning the methodology, supporting the rest of the business, which is the approach. So looking after the tooling, looking after the templates, looking after the guidance and the process, and supporting the rest of the wider business with how they approach their requirements, but also very much taking a leading role when the requirements are initially developed for the newer programs. So supporting the strategy phase, supporting the initial definition phase when the programs are being set up, and creating a baseline set of business requirements that is then fed into the program. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay, last couple of slides then, just to wrap up. One on the successes, so the things that we found that really helped us and really got us as far as we've got on the journey. First and foremost is making sure that the senior leadership were bought into this, understood the value of it, and therefore keep their support going, not just give us the money, but actually communicate out to the business, because the people making the change, if we come in, we say that service strategy part of the business, we come in and say, right, here's a new process, you guys go and do that, it's us at home, they're not going to listen. It needs to come down from on high and come from different voices around the business. So hence that all that effort about one-on-ones and sharing the vision, and most importantly, the why. That leads to the investment, so we've got the money to build this team. Without that, there's a lot of businesses try to make these changes on the side, if you like. You will struggle to get very far unless there's some money and there's some time set aside for doing this. We were lucky to secure quite a bit of money, but equally, again, no one's putting the money aside to say, right, go build my baseline architecture, go build what today looks like, because that will cost a fortune and take ages, and everyone has the view that, well, we'll get there eventually. If you model the too big, then in 5 years' time, you've got your baseline, because we've got there. We all know that doesn't really happen. So you have to build that up over time. There is increasingly recognition that maybe the next round